Hello dear aspirants, welcome to Drishti. I am Chiranth Rajashekhar and I'll be taking an orientation class on Forestry Optional for Indian Forest Service examination. So you all might be knowing that Indian Forest Service examination is one of the All India examination which is conducted by UPSC, and in order to understand the importance of forestry, I will run you all through a very quick introduction about the Indian Forest Service examination, because this Forestry Optional is available only for Indian Forest Service examination, and we'll just be seeing the importance of the Indian Forest Service examination, which you will understand. It's a very quick review on what this examination is and who are eligible and other things. So many of the aspirants who will be opting for civil service examination will not have an idea of Indian Forest Service examination, which is one of the prestigious exams which is conducted by UPSC. So I'll be giving you a brief run on why Indian Forest Service. Okay. See, there are some considerations which needs to be done before you opt for Indian Forest Service examination. So the first thing is the competition. See, Indian Forest Service examination will be conducted by UPSC, and it has 3 stages. So one is the prelims, mains, and the personality test, just like the civil service examination. But this was not like this as always. Out of all the 3 All India services, which is IAS, IPS, and IFoS, Indian Forest Service, this is the youngest All India service, which started in 1966, and since then it has been going on, and till 2013 it was an entirely different examination which was out of the process of civil service examinations. So civil service examination, you know, will have all these 3 stages, but till 2012, so the Indian Forest Service examination was an entirely different part which was conducted by UPSC, where the student had to just apply for the examination. They would be called for writing the mains examination, and once they have written the mains, they would be selected for personality test. There was no prelims examination. But since 2013, this part of the examination was included. That means the personality, the prelims examination was included in the process of selection of Indian Forest Service examination candidates. So now the same examination which will be conducted for the selection of civil service candidates, it is the common examination for both IFoS and IAS. So while applying for the exam, there will be an option. You can choose either civil service examination only, Indian Forest Service examination only, or both civil and Indian Forest Service examination. So that you can choose, and it has the same number of attempts which the civil service examination has. And for this examination, you have to be a science graduate, okay, science or engineer or even applied science. So that means to say, there are some pure sciences like you have physics, chemistry, mathematics, geology, botany, something like that, and you have to be either having a bachelor's degree in these subjects, or you have to be a BTech or BE graduate, or you have to be having one of the subject as a subject in your degree program which the notification has given. They have listed certain subjects. You have statistics, veterinary, agriculture. So those are applied sciences, forestry. These applied sciences should be one of your subject in the degree program. Then also you will be eligible to write the examination. So because the requirement or the eligibility to write the examination is very specific, there will be very less number of candidates who would opt this examination. Very surprisingly, several people who are eligible, they have a science degree, but due to lack of the knowledge on this examination, they would not actually choose to write this examination. So my effort to give you a review on this examination is to make those students aware of this examination. What is this examination is all about. So these are the technicalities of the examination. So because there only science graduates are eligible, so all the humanity graduates who would not apply for this examination will as such be out of the competition. That is one thing. The second thing is the number of seats which are allotted for the Indian Forest Service examination. So that is very less as compared to civil service examination. Civil service, on an average, there will be around 1,000 vacancies which are called upon by UPSC, and there is always a trend of the UPSC following the ratio of 1:3. So they'll call 1:3 ratio of students for the previous examination. So in the previous stage, so for example, if there are 1,000 seats, then 3,000 students will be called for the personality test, and around 9,000 or 10,000 students will be called for writing the mains, and prelims, as many number of students can apply. So usually there will be around 10 to 11 lakh candidates apply for the examination, for the prelims examination, out of which after filtering in the prelim stage, around 10 to 12,000 will be selected for writing the mains, and 3,000 will be called for the interview, and finally 1,000 will be selected. But in the Indian Forest Service examination, usually the number of seats will be around 120 to 150. It varies year after year. So it will be around 120 to 150 vacancies, and accordingly they will be calling around 400 to 450 students for the personality test. Okay, so at this stage there will be these many students, and there will be around 1,000 to 1,200 students who will be writing the mains. So this is the statistics. So it is very easy to compete among these students and get selected in 400 to 500, which is a ratio of half. So you can be in the better half, the selected half, if you have a little bit of good knowledge on the subjects. So that is one of the thing. And compared to civil service examination, so the competition will be really less. Okay, so because of these two factors, and for this examination usually the cutoff will be very high. So this is the first thing, that is the first consideration you should be doing for taking the Indian Forest Service examination. See, it is comparatively easier. Okay, so see, practically we cannot say it is the easiest exam or easier exam, because it is exam conducted by UPSC, and UPSC has some standards. But comparatively easier compared to civil service examination, it is easier because of the fact that in civil service examination you will be writing various GS papers. So you'll be writing, okay, paper 1 which contains history, geography and others. Then you have paper 2 which has political science, international relations, and governance and all. Then there'll be another GS paper, paper 3, so which will be economics, environment, science and technology, and paper 4 ethics and integrity. Then you have to write one additional essay paper. Then there is a compulsory paper, language paper. There are so many things, but here, so the entire GS is consolidated into one paper that is not even called as GS, it is called as general knowledge. Okay, so general knowledge paper. So this will be a 300 marks paper, and in this you will get questions from history, geography, economics, polity, science and tech and environment. Okay, so these are the questions, and it will be for all together, it will be for 300 marks. So that is the level of GS which will be checked from you. So anybody who has fairly prepared well for the prelims examination, it becomes very easy for them to clear. A little bit of effort would make them this paper very, very easy. And the students who usually attend the Indian Forest Service examination, after their well-versed preparation with the GS part of civil service examination mains, this paper is really a cakewalk. So that is the GK paper, and you have to write one general English paper. So that will also be for 300 marks, and it will have the things like essay writing, then it will have precise writing. It will be a paper which ask you to do a letter writing. Okay, then there will be adjectives, then make a sentence, identify the wrong terminologies, correct the right statement, so rewriting the statement in a correct form. So that kind of English knowledge will be tested. So after that you have two optional papers, optional paper 1 and optional paper 2. So you have to write two optionals and two papers, and given the amount of studies you have to do in GS, in English, in these two optionals, it is comparatively much more easier than the civil service examination. Okay, so here mainly the questions which are asked are very factual and concept based. So you know that science questions are very direct. They won't ask you opinion based questions as you will be asked in philosophy or psychology or history or even governance and polity. So there are most of the answers are opinion based, and even if you write the best answer, if that does not resonate with the evaluator, then he has a complete freedom of awarding you the less marks. But in the science optional subjects, the question will be very, very direct. Say for example, if the question is asked about a silviculture system, it's a universal concept that that question is fixed. Wherever you go in the world, that answer is the same. You cannot add anything to that answer. You cannot delete anything from that answer. 2 + 2 is always 4. So it is always think that it will be entirely right, or you cannot judge it. You just have to see whether the things has been followed or not. So if they ask you to draw a neat diagram of a particular bridge and label its parts, so if you do that, there is very less option for the evaluator to reduce your marks. So in that sense, it is comparatively easier than the civil service examination. That is the second consideration which you should be doing to take up Indian Forest Service examination as a option. Okay, so then close to nature. So it is Indian Forest Service examination is such kind of examination where you will be really close to the nature. You will be working with the environment, with the wildlife, with the nature. Okay, and it is a combination of both the desk job plus field job. So most of your work will have the combination of desk job and field job, in fact more of the field job. And if you are a wildlife enthusiast and if you like going trekking to the forests, so you like to do trekking or such kind of activities, if you are that kind of a person, then this is the examination for you. So you will be mostly working in the forest, in nature, in wildlife sanctuaries. You'll be dealing with trees, you'll be dealing with plants, live specimens, wildlife, okay, and many other aspects. So you'll be very close to the nature, and that is the reason why most of the people who love photography, who love bird watch, they would opt for this examination, because whatever you do for fun will be the job you will be doing, taking the payment from the government. Okay, so this is the job which keeps you close to the nature. You will be really working in the nature. Then it is comparatively having less stressful life, because you will be working mostly in the nature. So you don't have to take much stress. It is not having too much of pressure. You will be dealing with the people, you will be dealing with the forest communities who will be inside the forest. So you'll be dealing with the villages which are in and around the forest, which are called as forest fringe communities. So you'll be dealing with certain public, if you are in an urban forest, so municipalities and others. But as I have heard from more than 100 plus students who have been my students in the classroom, who has cleared the examination, so that it is comparatively stressful as compared to their counterparts who will be doing the Indian who have joined Indian Forest Police Service or Indian Administrative Service. They'll have too much of workload, and you all know this, okay, because the job of IPS and IAS are too much, because they have to deal with the public. Okay, so comparatively, so please give emphasis on this word comparatively, because I'm not saying it is entirely a stress-free job. You will be having stress sometimes whenever there is human animal conflict or any such kind of theft, but compared to the other jobs, it is easier one. If you are looking for a peaceful profession, so which can even fulfill your other objectives of joining a job, then this is one such job which you can consider. So then few more things. It's an all India service. All India service is one of the prestigious services in India. So there are only 3 all India services, as I have informed you. There is IAS, there is IPS and IFS, and IFS is the youngest of these services, which started in 1966. So being an all India service officer, you get a lot of perks and lot of facilities. So being an all India officer, you can be a part of a great administrative system. Okay, so which involves implementation of policy. As a Indian Forest Service officer, you will have a job of mainly implementing the national forest policy and also the acts and rules which are passed by the government. So it has both state and central combined influence. So you will be appointed by the center, but you will be taking your salary from the state, and you will be given allotted the cadre. So it has different cadres, just like IAS and IPS. So you will be having you will be offered with 26 state cadres along with AGMAT cadre. So you can choose according to your rank. So you will be joining in the capacity of a divisional forest officer, or in some states they will be called as the DCF. Okay, so Deputy Conservator of Forest. You'll be heading a division and you'll be implementing the National Forest Policy and other instructions from the government in your division. So you'll be taking care of all the administrative activities in this division. So that is the initial stage. But after some year of experience, so you can go into the central system. So you can join as a secretary, you can join as a joint secretary in the Government of India, and you can also be a part of the policy making. So you can be a part of the team which involves in policy making. That's a kind of pride. Okay, so policy making. Then you can, you may not have to work only with the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So this is under Ministry of Environment and Forest. Okay, so MOAFCC. You don't have to stick with one ministry. You can go horizontal. You can get a horizontal transfer. So you can start working under various other ministries. You can have a position after certain years of experience. You can be Central Vigilance Commissioner. You can be Information Commissioner. I have seen IFS officers being the registrar of certain universities, can be CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Zilla Panchayat. So you can be an MD for public sector undertaking. So you can head certain pollution control boards, Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Boards. You can be heading certain commissions. So National Tiger Conservation Authorities, or you can be heading the zoos, national parks. So there are so many ample opportunities. So don't think that if you join as an IFS officer, you will be sticking as an IFS officer. You have an option to even go to other departments, whatever you feel. If you don't like here, then you can always switch to other things. You can head wildlife division. So you can deal with environmental, you can be a committee. So all these things are there. Along with that, you can represent India in a lot of the negotiations, climate related, environment related negotiations with other countries. You can be an ambassador from the government to represent certain conferences, convictions in the later stage. So you can even go abroad and study. There is an option that after joining, if you want to do your masters, then the government will send you abroad, giving the full salary for you to go and study abroad. Okay, even there is an option for getting higher education. So all these things are there as a part of the Indian Forest Service officer. So it is one of the 3 All India Service examination. So along with that, you can reach the unreachable. That is all there. That all those benefits of being a officer will all be there. But one thing which you might get impressed or be motivated to join Indian Forest Service examination is that you can really go and reach the unreachable. There are some people who are out of this entire setup of the society. So they are called the Adivasis, okay, or the tribal people, or the traditional forest dwellers. So these are the people who stay in the forest, though they are out completely cut off from the society. They are completely cut off from the benefits which the society is enjoying from the government, from the developmental process and everything. So these people are usually untouched. Okay, they are not reachable. So you will have power, or you will have an authority to reach out to those people. You can interact with them and you can touch the souls of millions of people. You can create employment for them. You can bring them into the mainstream of development. You can benefit them with the government schemes. You can create, a combined force along with the locals, which usually called as joint forest management. Through the schemes of joint forest management, you can coordinate with them. You can form a joint committee involving both the forest officials and the local aids, and utilize them in the protection, management and benefit sharing process of from the forest and nature. So all these things are there, and you can actually help them. Okay. You can really be able to reach out to those people. But other services, usually they are mostly in the cities, and they will be having a thing. This feature is there even for the other services, other civil services and all India services, but they'll be dealing with the urban poor. But the Indian Forest Service has more chances of being in touch and working closely with the people who are in the forest, within the forest, the tribals. You can utilize their skills, in the national development. There are so many organizations which are involved in bringing up the tribal craft and art to the mainstream. So you can improve their livelihood. So that is one of the reason why you have to consider the Indian Forest Service. Okay, you can really make an impact on the environment. See, environment nowadays is very, very important. So the forest is very closely associated with the environment, and any impact on the forest has a direct influence on the environment. So that is the reason why earlier the ministry name was Ministry of Environment and Forest. Now it has even changed to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, to give the importance of climate change and clubbing or associating with the environment and forest. So you will be implementing the policy instructions, National Forest Policy, which mainly aims to reduce the pollution, control the climate change, and all these things related to environment. So environment is one such thing which is being looked upon very seriously nowadays all over the globe, including India, because of the capability of the environment to completely wipe out the developmental process. One such environmental event is good enough to completely devastate whatever the amount of development which you have done till now. So one tsunami can completely wipe out the islands. No matter how much of development they have been done, everything will be washed away. So it can completely destroy coastal regions. The rise in sea level because of climate change might entirely submerge the coastal areas. Okay, so pollution might lead to instant death of millions of people. So if it's of too much toxic level, there are so many impacts of environment. So environment is a very important topic, and in fact there were some rumors of even starting an Indian environmental service, just like IAS, IPS and IFoS. Environment has become that much important in India. So as an Indian Forest Service officer, you have an option to make a real impact on the environment. If you are really passionate to contribute something to the society, do something and make a change in the country, then you can actually will be in a capacity to do that by making sure that whatever the activities which you are doing is favoring the environment. You can reduce the pollution, you can go for afforestation, you can reduce the deforestation, which is one of the major reason for the environmental problems. So you can reduce the loss of biodiversity by controlling the poaching, by controlling the smuggling, by reducing the invasive species. There are so many ways which you can act in the capacity of a DCF or DFO, wherein you will be contributing a lot towards the environment. Okay, so the impact on environment will be too high if you really want to act and work. It will be in your capacity. Okay. So then along with that, there are some things like pay scales, perks, social recognition. You will be in a position where the society will recognize you for your efforts, for your position, for the acts which you are doing. You will be, having a very good salary scale on par with the other civil service positions. Okay, so other civil servants, IAS or IPS, you will be having this similarly on par. Building quarters from the government, so which will be really huge. You'll be having security, so you'll be given with all the vehicles, petrol for your travel. All these perks, whatever is there with other examinations, will be there. So that's why I have put it as a last. This should not be the motivation for you to join, but whatever the other points which I have discussed should be a better motivation for you to join the Indian Forest Service examination or join the Indian Forest Service. So if you are eligible, if you are an engineer, if you are a science graduate, or having the applied sciences as one of your subject in the degree, then please go for it and apply for the examination. Usually the Indian Forest Service examination mains happens after the completion of the civil service examination. You will be having a 2 to 3 months of gap between two mains. So anyway, you will be free. So waiting for the results or for the interview. So in that time, you can make it the time, utilize the time for preparation of Indian Forest Service examination. Okay. So that is about the Indian Forest Service examinations. Having said that, now let us see how this examination will be. Okay. So then I'll go to the subjects. So this examination, after clearing prelims, you will be attending the same examination, the same prelims examination as civil service examination. And once you clear it, once you clear the cutoff for Indian Forest Service examination, you will be called to write the mains examination. Mains examination, as I told you, there are 4 papers. One is the general knowledge paper. So then you have general English, both are for 300 marks. Then you have 2 optionals, one is optional 1 and another is optional 2. So both will be for 400 marks. So these is the marks which will be considered for selecting you to the personality test. So the general knowledge paper, as I said, will have all the GS subjects combined. You'll have 3-4 questions from history, then you have 3-4 questions from geography, from polity, from economics, and majority from the science and technology and environment. So you'll have questions from that and you have to answer it. And believe me, most of the students who are appearing for the Indian Forest Service examination mains, they would be a creamy layer, because they would have done so well in paper 1 of prelims that they would have got selected to the mains examination. That means their GS subject knowledge is good. So most of the students will score almost similar marks in GK and general English. So they'll write good answers, they will write a nice essay, because they would have written the mains examination. So why am I so sure that the people who are writing IFoS would have written the civil service examination mains, is because the cutoff for the qualification of civil service mains is lesser than the Indian Forest Service examination. Okay. So anybody who have qualified for Indian Forest Service obviously would have crossed the cutoff of civil service examination, and hence they would have, I am presuming that they would have written the civil service examination. Okay. So till now I have come across only 1 or 2 students who have not written civil service examination in spite of being selected and are writing the Indian Forest Service examination. They had a pure passion of joining Indian Forest Service. So other than that, most of the students will write the civil service examination. So they would have practiced for their essays and others. This paper would go really well. There is no difference in that. The actual difference which leads to the selection can be done only in optionals. Optional subjects create creates a huge impact on your marks. Okay. So the marks are the final criteria for selecting you either to the personality test or for the final selection, and you can really score high and you can really make the difference if you have prepared your optional well. So I have given you the justification why, because in GS and GE all the students will be on par, they will be scoring a good marks, but it is the optional which actually makes the difference. So it's optional which decides whether your final score is high or not. So two optionals will be there. What the students do usually is they will be taking one optional, because in civil service examination you have only one optional. So they will be taking the civil service examination optional, whatever they have taken in the civil service examination as one of the optional, they will retain it and they will be searching for the second optional which is easier to finish off and which is easier to combine. Okay. So they would have definitely prepared for one optional. Say if any student has taken physics as an option in civil service examination, or he has taken botany or agriculture, engineering or geology, or mathematics. Okay, so these are the options which they can take in the mains examination as an optional subject in civil service exam. But along with that, they need one more option which is easier, which can go with the option, because there are some combinations which you are not allowed to take. So it can go with the combination of the one optional, and it is easier to finish and it is less time consuming and easier to understand. So that is the setup. Okay, this is the examination structure. So what are the optional subjects which are offered by the UPSC? So you have agriculture engineering. Okay, so then you have animal husbandry and veterinary sciences, botany, chemistry, chemical engineering, civil engineering, forestry, geology, then mathematics, mechanical engineering, physics, statistics and zoology. If you have any of these subjects as one of your subject in undergraduation, you are eligible to write the examination. Okay, and out of these two you have to choose only two subjects. Okay, two subjects, one as option 1 and optional 2. So there are some restrictions in taking the optional. You cannot take agriculture and forestry, so you cannot take agriculture and agriculture engineering, you cannot take animal husbandry and veterinary science. There are some restrictions which are there, and the reason is that most of the students start getting selected with those two options. So that's why they have put some restrictions. So these are the options available. Now I will be taking up this forestry as an option, and I will come to the actual part of the lecture, so which is why forestry. Why do you have to consider taking forestry as one of your optional? So you might have chosen the other option, but why forestry will be a better option for you to be chosen for Indian Forest Service examination. Okay, so let us try to discuss that, and let us try to demyst the entire forestry subject, and then you will be in a better situation to decide whether to go with the subject or not. So why forestry? So why forestry is the best choice as one of the option? Okay, I will be giving you the reasons. So see, it is Indian Forest Service. Okay, so you will be having the forestry or the aspects of branches of forestry as a part of the examination in every stage. Earlier when Indian Forest Service was not combined with the process of civil service examination, the number of questions coming from environment, ecology, biodiversity, wildlife management, science and technology, general science, they were very less. most of the questions, especially if you talk about prelims, the most of the questions used to come from humanities, history, polity, geography, economics. A major chunk was that. Around 70 questions used to come from that, and remaining there used to be a mixture of environment, science and technology, current affairs and everything. So now the number of questions which are asked from environment, ecology, biodiversity and wildlife management, if you take this entire chunk, okay, so ecology, okay, environment, biodiversity, wildlife management, so this year prelims it was around 19 questions, previous year it was 20 questions, before last year it was 22 questions, 21 questions. So this entire part covers around 20, on an average 20 questions from this part, okay, excluding geography. And if you take science and technology, so there will be around 13 to 14 questions every year. And if you take general science, okay, so there will be around 7 to 8 questions. So this is the entire chunk of science part of the examination. Okay, so they have drastically increased the number of questions being asked from environment, science and technology, general science. So it is almost like you're very near to the 50%. The reason is that UPSC wants to create a level playing field for both humanities and science students. Why? Because Indian Forest Service is been included in the process. So it is one of the examination which the student will be opting, and for that they will be writing the prelims. So they have, in order to create a balance, they have increased the number of questions being asked from the science background. Okay, so all these aspects will be a part of forestry. So if you look into the forestry syllabus, which I am going to discuss very soon, that you can see that it has a major chunk of all these things. All these things will be studied as a part of forestry. So you have to study forestry in the examination in the prelim stage. You have to study forestry as a part of paper 3, so where environment, ecology, biodiversity, wildlife is asked. Then in the interview part, in the personality test, so the personality test, so which will be conducted after the mains, if you get selected, it will be completely like technical. So the kind of questions which the board asks to the candidates will be mostly technical in nature, unlike the civil service examination interview. In civil service examination interview, they'll be asking you about the opinion, or they'll be asking you about some questions on your DAF from your hobby. They'll be trying to judge your personality, so with respect to it. But here in Indian Forest Service examination, as I have observed from the transcripts of the students, the number of questions which are asked from the optional subjects and your specialization in your degree will be around 60 to 70%. So only around 30 to 40% of the questions will be asked from your DAF. So that too will be like, have you visited any national parks? So what are the kind of forest is present in your locality? Mostly the origin based, okay, specific questions to that person, place or whatever he has, wherever he has been. But rest 50 to 60% of the questions, in fact 70% of the question will be technical. They'll be asked from your optional and the specialization in your degree program. And coming to optional, even if you have forestry as one of your optional or not, despite of that, they will be asking question to you on forestry because it is Indian Forest Service. Because of that simple reason, So they are expected, they expect you to know about the forest because you are planning to join Indian Forest Service examination. So having said that, the forestry subject is very important even for the students who does not take forestry as a optional. They have to brush up through certain basic aspects of forestry after their mains if they got selected to the interview program. Okay, they have to read certain books to get knowledge on forestry. But the person or the aspirant who has studied forestry as an option, it will be a cakewalk. It will be a real fun because he will be answering the same subject which he has already taken as a option. Okay. In all the three stages, you will have application of the forest. Okay, it will be equal playing ground. Okay, see, when you say an equal playing ground, okay, so when you say an equal playing ground, that means that most of the people who will be attending the classes or taking forestry as an option will have a same beginning. They will be starting from the scratch. So there are very few or in almost none of the students who would have specialized in forestry and attending a forestry class. Okay, I have encountered some 5-6 students in my long career of teaching forestry for 13 plus years. So I have been teaching forestry since past 13 years and have taught for more than 35 plus batches. With that experience, I can say that all the students are in the same level of beginning. See, forestry is a discipline. It is offered in agriculture universities. There are College of Forestries, forestry colleges where they offer proper BSc forestry degree. And those students study forestry as a discipline. They study forestry for 4 years. Then some people carry on and they study forestry in their masters for 2 more years. And some will also do PhD in forestry for 3 more years. Totally, forestry has that much of stuff to study. But as a optional subject for Indian Forest Service, we have to be very precise and very coordinated in learning. We have to learn according to the previous 25-30 years question papers, and according to which we have to frame your syllabus. Okay, so what are the things which are to be studied? What are the things which are negotiable? What are the topics in the exam which are non-negotiable? That means those topics from which the question has been asked from past 20 years continuously, year after year. So those are the non-negotiable part of the syllabus. So that kind of inference is needed in this subject. So here in the examination preparation, you will be studying forestry and from a different perspective. So the students who have done their masters and others, so they'll be very good at their science optional and science subjects, but they find it very difficult to clear the prelims, and that is the reason why the actual IFoS aspirants who are the actual competitors in this subject, so they are very less who will be competing with you in the mains because of the reason that they are that is a trend, that is what I have observed, that they are not able to clear the prelims. So all these people whom you will be facing or you will be competing in Indian Forest Service mains examination, they would be having a zero knowledge or very less knowledge about the subject. So they'll be starting from the scratch. Okay, so you will be starting from the 0 point along with all the aspirants. So there is a level playing field. So this you cannot say with other things. The people who has say engineering option, but still because of the thing, he took history as a optional subject, and a person who has taken history, has studied history in BSc, MSc and PhD, obviously their knowledge will be very high, and the person who has just studied would not make any difference. There will be no level playing field. But in this, because it's a very unique subject, so there are very less number of students who has specialization in this subject. So it becomes a level playing field, so for you to play. Okay. Then, so prelims cutoff. As I said earlier, you might know that the prelims cutoff, I have just taken the example of 2023 civil service examination data from the official website. So for prelims, for general, if you just consider, so it is 75.41. Okay, that is the cutoff for prelims in 2023 for civil service examination. So if you take the cutoff for Indian Forest Service, it is 93.60. Okay, so you have to score 20 marks more than what you are scoring for the civil service examination cutoff. So that is the reason why only the creamy layers of the people will be getting selected. This is one of the reason why there will be less competition. Okay, you will be competing with only around 4,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in the mains. In the entire selection, you will be competing with around 1,200 people in the mains for getting selected for 400 plus people for the interview. So that is the thing, and for that reason, so you will be having forestry as one of the best option. And prelims, you know that the major scoring thing here, as I said, near to 50% of the questions will be from science background, and the forestry has this. Okay, for forestry optional has so many aspects of the GS which is been incorporated within it, and hence there is very less competition. Okay, so you will be doing a very good job in the prelims if you have mastery over forestry. So why I am saying this, I'll justify this once I am discussing the syllabus. Okay, because in the syllabus you can see there is environment, okay, ecology, there is wildlife, there is also aspects of the entire environment here. So the competition will be very less in forestry subject because of the reason why I said, as it is a discipline, and most of the forestry discipline students, because of our inability to crack the prelims examination, will not be sitting. So all of them will be having the same amount of knowledge. So if you have a little better structured, organized guidance by taking an optional, then you will really be in a position to be in top 10 of the ranks. So mains is not a problem in Indian Forest Service examination. If at all you have done the coaching and you have taken the coaching, so then mains is a cakewalk. It's only the prelims which you have to cut off. Okay, so which you have to clear. The time consumption. So forestry is that kind of subject which is mainly conceptual. So it has so many aspects which is repeated several times in the syllabus. I'll show you when I'm doing the syllabus discussion. So it takes around 4 to 4.5 months exclusively, even if you go at the depth and study. So it will take around 4.5 to 5 months to complete the entire syllabus. Okay, so this is a very good amount of time so to complete the syllabus, and you can entirely master the subject within this given period. So the reason is that the forestry deals with mainly the trees, and trees have a very long gestation period. What do you mean by this gestation period? The lifespan. Okay, see, agriculture, if I compare with the agriculture subject, so agriculture deals with the crops. Okay, it may be food crop, cereal crop, or oilseed crop, or pulses. Okay, so vegetables, fruits, and all these things. So these crops will have a short period of lifetime. Say for example, cotton, it is 4 months crop. Sugarcane, 1 year crop. Brinjal, 1 year crop. Okay. Rice, 7 months crop. So similarly, different crops have different lifespan and they are shorter. So whenever you are trying to study the character of a tree, of a plant, you can get the results in 4 months because it will be completing and it will be giving the next generation of seeds. But forest, these trees have a very long gestation period. Okay, starting from 60 years, so it may go to 120 to 150 years. Okay, there are some trees which are 1000 years. So what will you study in that, in 1000 years? It is very difficult to do the main research and development. So the R&D is very, very difficult in forestry because of the nature of the crop, which is trees, which is very, very long. And because of that reason, there is no much research which is done in forestry as compared to agriculture. There are research centers which are there spread across the countries, and research is being going on. There is Forest Research Institute, so which is doing excellent research on forestry, but the output are so scientific and so technical that they cannot be a part of the question to be asked in the examination. So what we have in forestry is some standard syllabus, some very concised syllabus. So this syllabus has some standard reference books. So we have some books written by Khanna sir, okay, Khanna by Chaturvedi, okay. Then you have a book written by Ram Prabhu. Then you have the books written by Negi. Okay. So these are some standard authors who have come up with the textbooks in 1980s. So these are some very eminent forest officers, IFoS officers who have been in research, and they have written a book concising all the things which they have accumulated from the British. So the forest in India was properly structured by Dr. Brandis in 1860s, who laid the foundation for the forest department in India. Since then, forest has been taken care by the British, and there is a lot of research which the British has done. They have surveyed the entire forest, they have measured the forest, they have classified the forest, and they have been applying the scientific principles for scientific management of the forest. And most of these scientific principles have been borrowed from the European countries. So most of the German foresters or European French foresters or the UK foresters have visited India pre-independent, and they have given some way to follow or manage the forest after extensive years of studying the forest. So whatever we are following now is the same thing which they have recommended. There is no much change, and whatever the syllabus which is there in some of the books, that is the same thing which the undergraduate students will study. There is the same books which even the master's students will refer. There is the same book even I think the question paper setter will refer, and that is the same book which I have also referred and prepared my notes. They are big, they are in multiple volumes. They can be studied as a pure textbook if you want to become a complete master in the forestry. But if you don't have that purpose, and if you are here to clear the examination, then it has to be very carefully crafted, and only the crux needs to be taken out so that you are able to write a satisfactory answer to the questions being asked. And having said that, it should not be too much depth or it should not be too shallow, because there is one misconception in the market that for forestry there is one book and you can read that one book and clear the examination. And it has happened before in the beginning where the questions were asked very simple, what is this and what is that. Now UPSC have taken a notice of this, and since past 7 years they have entirely changed the way of asking the questions. they need conceptual answers. They are asking the the crux or the concept behind certain things. They are asking the calculations, but the syllabus is the same. So they are not going away from the whatever the syllabus which is been given. Within the syllabus itself, they are going little deep. So you can't go with the older things. Many of the students, my forestry students, they are the students who would have tried that way, failed, scored less marks, and then they would be coming for the classes. Okay, so that is the reason why it consumes very less time. Time consumption is very less, and this is a boon for you, because after the completion of civil service examination, so you will be having around 3 to 3.5 months, okay, for attending the Indian Forest Service examination. So within this month, so even though if you cannot completely cover the forestry subject, if you have done if you have taken the forestry optional earlier, so this is a very good time for revising both your optionals and brushing up your GS. So your GS can be brushed within 1 week if you just spend 1 week if you have written the mains. So that is good enough for writing the answers in GK, and this is a good amount for brushing up both your optional subjects. Okay, so that is one of the reason. Okay. Then relevance to prelims. As I said, the subjects which are present in forestry. So if you look into the syllabus of the forestry, it covers full part of environment, okay, ecology, okay, biodiversity, okay, wildlife management, okay, then environmental legislation, okay. So you can see so many questions are coming from here. This year prelims also, if you just have a look at it, there was questions on the Wildlife Protection Act, there was question on Environment Protection Act, so there was question on climate change, a question on pollution, so there were question on so many wild animals, wildlife, okay. All these things is a small part of forestry optional. So literally you will be studying 20 to 22 marks of questions which you have to otherwise study as a part of your GS preparation for mains as well as your prelims. So 20 to 22 questions in prelims and a fixed number of questions in the paper 3 of mains, which you have to otherwise study separately as a part of your GS. You can completely skip if you take forestry as an option, because all these aspects are the syllabus of forestry. You have this in the syllabus. We will be just very soon seeing or looking into the syllabus. So I'll be showing and I'll be giving you an idea on the syllabus. So this is what is the thing, and there is very much relevance to the prelims, and because of that reason forestry is one of the best choice to have as a second option for Indian Forest Service examination. Okay, it is concept based. Okay, as I said earlier, it is not opinion based. So the questions are conceptual based. So if you know the concept, if you know how to do a surveying, or if you know how the forest is managed under a particular system, so if you know these are the products and these are the uses, so that is all practical based. So this is actually what is happening in the in the present time. Okay, you are not studying something which is entirely imagine. So entirely under imagination. It is the thing which is actually happening in the field. So if you are talking about the felling of trees in a proper system, then it is the thing which is actually followed in the field. So if you are taking the observations using a compass, then it is the thing which is actually happening. If you talk about the forest bridges, there are bridges which you can see. Okay, So most of the topics in forestry are concepts based, and they are very straightforward, and if you understand the concept and if you represent it, then there is no way that you will be scoring less marks. There is very less chances of the evaluator to penalize you in the examination for the answers. Okay, it is concept based. Okay, so the number of final selections, okay, this is one of, again, my personal observation. So there is no statistics for me to justify this, but what I have observed from the number of students whom I have met in the process of their selection, so around 90 to 95% of the students, okay, so 90 to 95% of the students who get finally selected as Indian Forest Service examination, Indian Forest Service officers, so they would have forestry as one of the options. So there are very few students who would choose other optionals like mathematics and geology, or they would have chosen mechanical engineering and mathematics, something like that, the thing, because of the same reason which we have discussed earlier, that there be choosing one optional in their civil service examination main, and they will be searching for the easy option to complete in a very short period, which are easy to understand, conceptualize and read, and very high scoring. So for which the forestry optional suits the best, and that is the reason why 90 to 95% of the final selected students will have forestry as one of the optionals. Anyway, you are going to study forestry in your training program, that will be taught to you, but it is not made compulsory to take in the examination. But this is the trend which is going on, that out of the final number of selections, maximum number of selection will be with forestry as one of the optional. Okay. So repetition within the syllabus, there are certain parts of the forestry topic which has repeated not just twice but thrice in the syllabus. I'll show you when I'm discussing the syllabus that there are some sort of topics which has repeated, so they don't have to be read in every place. So if you read it in once in one of the topic, that is good enough. So other places you can skip. That is how you reduce the time consumed by studying this optional, and that is the reason why it is easier. Okay, there are so many applications and so many repetitions. Okay, so one concept you can use it in other places, so you can directly see it in the syllabus, in the UPSC notification syllabus, but you can also make it out when you are studying, that there are so many concepts which keep on repeating in several things. If you know silviculture general, then that will be applied almost in every branch of forestry. You will apply it in management, you will apply it in mensuration, you will apply it in utilization, so you will apply it in harvesting. There are so many places where a single concept will be applied and understood. So you have to study forestry as a comprehensive and a structured subject, which I'll be helping you to do that. So there are many repetitions, okay, of the topics, okay, which you have to study. Say for example, in silviculture you will be studying something called as seed science or seed technology. We'll be studying about the seeds of the forest. So when it's fallen, like how do you take it, how do you grade it, how do you separate it, how do you test it, how do you store it, how do you sow it, and everything. So in the same paper, paper 1, in section B, there is a separate heading of seed technology. So in environment, you will be studying the problems related to environment, like you will be studying deforestation. Okay. So then you'll be studying mining, studying forest fires. Okay. So you'll be studying encroachment. Okay. Then you'll be studying defective management. All these are as a part of environment as a environmental problem. And the same thing you will also be studying in the paper 2 in a part called as forest protection. Okay. So under which you will be studying the injuries caused to the forest by various agencies, and one such agency will be the human beings, and under humans you will be studying the concepts of this. There is a concept called joint forest management, which you will be studying as a part of forest management, and you will be studying the same joint forest management in agroforestry. You will be studying again JFM in national in forest legislation. So 3 places it has repeated. So I'll be showing you where it has been there in the syllabus. So but there are so many areas in the syllabus which is repeated multiple times. Okay. So the questions which are asked in the examination will be simple. Okay. Okay. They'll be simple, direct, and concept based questions, and you don't have the questions which are based on your opinion or opinion based questions. Okay. So that is the reason why there is very high chances that you will be scoring a good marks. So usually it is very difficult to score 50% of the marks in any optional. So it is really difficult, and that is the reason why the entire cutoff of the topper will be somewhere around 50% of the total marks, okay, even less than that. But in forestry, you can go up to 60 to 70% of scoring because of this concept based questions. Okay. So if they ask, like, how do you say, for example, there is a question, how do you calculate the distance or the height of a tree if this is the distance at which he is standing. Okay, a person is standing and you want to measure the height of a tree. So there is a fixed formula. If you know it, you know the measurements, apply it and write the answer. There is no way he can reduce marks because of that. But in most of the subjects, this is a problem that your answer might not satisfy the evaluator. Okay, so that is one of the reason. So because of all these reasons, forestry is one of the most opted and most desired optional chosen for Indian Forest Service examination. So that is the concept. Okay. So these reasons or these justifications would be convincing enough for you to take up forestry as one of your optionals. And once you have decided that if you are taking forestry as an option, then you will be having this breakup. Okay. So the broad breakup of the forestry optional, you will have paper 1. Okay. So and this paper 1, as I said, will be for 400 marks. Okay. There will be 2 sections, section A and section B, and paper 2 again will be for 400 marks with section A and section B. Okay. So this will be totally of 400 marks, 200 marks for question paper 1 and 200 marks for paper 2. Okay, I'll be giving you the breakup of the marks, okay, in the next slide. So this is the broad breakup. Okay, both the papers have 2 sections. Okay. So if you go further and if I give you a little bit more deep in the thing, so paper 1, as I said, has 2 sections. If I give you a very broad knowledge on the subjects which is there, section A, it has silviculture general, then it has silviculture systems. I am going to discuss the syllabus of these things, but I'm giving you overall idea. Then we have silviculture of mangroves and cold deserts, then silviculture of trees. Okay. Then in section B we have agroforestry, okay, social forestry and tribology. Then we have forest soils, okay, soil conservation and watershed management. Then we have environment and biodiversity. Then we have tree breeding and seed technology. So this is a very broad breakup of the paper 1, okay, both the sections. So if you take look into paper 2, section A has forest management, okay, then you have forest working plan, then forest mensuration, survey and engineering. Okay. Then you have section B, in which you will be studying forest ecology, which is the same as like an environmental ecology, and ethnobotany. Then you have forest resource utilization, forest protection and wildlife biology. Lastly, forest economics and forest legislation. Okay. So this is the entire broad breakup of the syllabus of paper 1 and paper 2. So if you look into the question paper, just I'm trying to relate the sub syllabus. I've given you the broad breakup. So now you have understood that in paper 1 there is section A, which has 4 parts. We have section B, which has 4 parts. In paper 2 we have section A 4 parts, section B 4 parts. Totally there are around 16 parts. If you divide the entire syllabus of forestry, you will get 16 parts. Okay, so as divided earlier. And this is the question paper instruction which will be given in the beginning of the question paper. And if you look at it, this is the same thing, every year this has not been changed. This is a very common trend, and this is how the question will be. So it was like this since couple of years, many years. This is the trend which is going on, and hopefully if there is no drastic changes which UPSC thinks of making, this will continue. This is the trend which is going to continue. So in the question paper, in both paper 1 and paper 2, so there will be totally 8 questions, and these 8 questions are the main questions, and within this there will be sub questions. So there will be 8 questions. Okay, so there are 8 questions, and out of which you have to answer only 5. Okay, so I have to answer only 5 out of 8 questions. Question number 1 and 5 are compulsory. Okay, out of these 8, 1 question number and 5 question number are compulsory, and out of the remaining 6, 3 has to be attempted selecting at least one question from each of the two sections A and B. I'll explain you what they mean. The attempts will be counted in sequential order, and you should strike off the page, and all these are common. But this is where I wanted to emphasize, and this will be written only in English. You don't have an option to write this in the Hindi or any other language. It can only be written in English. So as I said, this is paper 1. Okay, so in which I'll be giving you an idea on section A. Okay, so section A, as I said, will have question number 1. Okay, question number 1 has A, B, C, D, E. Okay, so then you have question number 2. It has A, B, C. Then question number 3, A, B, C. Then question number 4 will have A, B, C. So this is what is the number of questions. So in section A, you will be getting around 14 to 15 questions, and the first question will always have, each question will be for 8 marks. Okay, so these are the 8 markers, and this section will carry around 40 marks. Okay, so this will be for 15 or 10. Okay, 10 10 15 15 10 10 or something like that, but totally this will also be carrying around 40 marks. Okay, so this is the same thing for other papers, so it will be 40 marks. So for 40 marks, so totally there will be 160 marks. Okay, so this is the same thing. And if you just look into section B, okay, so there will be question number 5. Okay, question number, this also has A, B, C, D and E. Question number 6 with A, B and C. Question number 7 with A, B and C, and question number 8 with A, B and C. Okay, so the trend is the same. Okay, so they'll have 8 marks, will be 40, there will be 15 15 and 10, 15 15 and 10, and again there will be 15 15 and 10. So every question will carry an equal marks of 40. 40 marks is the allotted marks for every question, and question number 1 will have 5 questions. So these are individual questions. Every question will be A, B, C, D. So totally you will be getting around 28 to 30 questions in one paper. So this is the same thing for paper 1, or in fact it's the same thing for paper 2 as well. Okay, so this is the number of question. Now according to the guidelines given by the UPSC, so question number 1 is compulsory, question number 5 is compulsory. These two has to be attended. Okay, these are the questions which you cannot skip, which cannot choose, and totally out of these 8 only 5 needs to be answered. You have to answer only 5 questions out of 8 questions, and 2 is done, and remaining you have to answer 3. You can choose those 3 questions either from these 3 and these 3, but the choice will be such that you can choose 2 from here but 1 should be from there, or 2 from there or 1 should be from here. You can either choose 6 7, but you cannot choose 8. You have to choose one among 2, 3, 4. You can choose 2, 3, and you have to choose the last one from 6, 7, 8, or 3, 4, or 6, 7, 8, something like that. So this is a very, very important thing, to understand that if you choose the questions from the section A of both the papers, your score will be higher, because these are the subjects which are very, very specific to the forestry syllabus. So they are not found anywhere else, but the portions or the topics which are there in section B of paper 1 and paper 2, they are somewhere to be found in other parts of GS, say for example forest soils, so which I just mentioned. So if you could see the section B, so this is very specific to forestry, and these are the topics like forest soils, watershed conservation. You will somewhere read it in geography. Okay, so this will help you in answering geography optional. Okay, geography GS part. Then environment biodiversity, obviously you'll read it as a part of your GS. Then agroforestry, sociology, tribology, you will read somewhere in GS in social issues. So here also, if you see, these are pure forestry topics, and these are like the ecology part, wildlife protection, forest legislation. This you will read as a part of your GS. So mostly the students who do not specifically prepare for forestry, like they would not have taken proper guidance, structured guidance, or not taken the optionals, they would just read some books here and there, browse some websites, get some knowledge, and what they will choose mostly is 2 questions mainly from section B of both the parts, and for that reason the score drops down. Okay, so the section A of both the papers are very, very high scoring. They are completely technical, and if you understand once, you will never forget the concepts, and you will be scoring very high marks if you choose 2 from here and 1 from there, instead of choosing 2 from section B and 1 from section A. This is one thing which you have to remember, and that is what gets you. These are some of the tricks to get a single digit rank. Okay, so these are the things. Now I'll move on to the syllabus. I'll be discussing the syllabus, what is the syllabus and how it is done, and what are the things which are there. So I'll give you a very brief knowledge on what the forestry syllabus is. Okay, so basically when you look into the syllabus, as I said, I have given the broad breakup of the syllabus. Now I'll be going into the depth. So I'll be discussing the part of this syllabus one by one. Okay, so silviculture general, the first part of paper 1 section A. So silviculture general, the syllabus reads out as such. Okay, general silvicultural principles, ecological and physiological factors influencing vegetation, natural and artificial regeneration of forest, methods of propagation, grafting techniques, site factors, nursery and planting techniques, nursery beds, polybags, maintenance of water budgeting, grading and hardening of seedlings, special approaches, establishment and tending. Okay, so this is what it says. But we cannot exactly go according to this. We will cover each and every word written in the syllabus, but there is a proper way of studying. Initially, so we'll be discussing what is silviculture. See, silviculture comes from the word silvix. Silvix is when you study the life history, characters, behavior and nature of a particular tree with respect to its environment. So how the tree grows, what is its nature, what is its lifespan, what is its life history, so what are its characters, all these things is what is silvix. So once you have the knowledge of a particular tree, when you apply that knowledge in maintaining a forest. Okay, because forests are usually natural, so they are the natural resources of the country, and you will be, as a forest manager, asked to manage that forest scientifically for a sustainable yield. You have to extract the resources from the forest in a sustainable way, and at the same time you have to replace them with the new ones, young ones. So for doing it, you have to manage the forest, you have to establish the forest, regenerate the forest, calculated harvest should be done, and again this cycle goes on. So application of the knowledge of Silvics in the establishment, management, extraction and taking care of the forest, that is what is exactly silviculture. So this is one part of the forestry where the main intention is to earn money from the forest, okay, to earn income, or to see forest as a resource, and at the same time not allowing it to deplete. It's not deforestation, don't confuse it with the deforestation process. So deforestation is like when you cut off and when you don't have any intention to replant it. But here in silviculture, we will be extracting the forest resources in such a manner, mainly for timber, that you are getting something out of the forest resources. At the same time, you are again regenerating it and sustainability is established. So that is what is silviculture, and there are so many branches of forestry, okay, so which is related to silviculture, where silviculture is applied. And in fact, before last year there was a direct questions, okay. So what are the different branches of forestry which are related to silviculture, something like that, okay. So while discussing the topics, I'll be discussing this particular topic, and I'll be showing you all the questions which has been asked from the past 20 years in this particular topic. So we'll be doing that exercise as and when we take the class. As I complete a topic, I'll be making you write all the previous year questions related to that topic, okay. So once you know what is the general principles of silviculture, what are its branches, what are its applications, what are its objectives, needs, scope and others, then we'll move to the ecological and physiological factors influencing, okay. So general silvics and silviculture, okay. So after that, so we'll be dealing with the ecological and physiological factors, which are called as factors of locality, okay. Factors of locality. So when the tree is growing, so they are influenced by various factors. They are influenced by biotic factors, abiotic factors. They are influenced by plants, other birds, microorganisms, man, and abiotic factors like light, temperature, wind, then rainfall. So we'll be studying the different factors which influence the vegetation in their growth and development. So there are some direct questions which has been asked, like how wind influences what are the direct and indirect benefits of winds. So how frost injury happens, what are the species which are resistant to the frost, so how snow is affecting the growth of vegetation. They have asked about everything, temperature, rainfall. So individually we have to study all these things. Then we'll go to the natural and artificial regeneration. Regeneration is a process of renewing the forest, because we have extracted the timber from the forest and we have to regenerate it. We have to plant the new ones so that they will replace the older ones, and the forest property or the principal amount of timber in the forest will be same in perpetuity, forever. So even though if you extract it, the forest is also growing and putting on some increment, right? So that will be taken care so that sustainability is maintained, and that can be done through natural and artificial regeneration. Regeneration can be done artificially by proper handling of the seeds, or it can be done naturally. Naturally, the forest has an ability to regenerate, because forest comes under a category of resources which is neither renewable nor non-renewable, but it is conditionally renewable. So they are considered as a renewable resource only on certain conditions, that you don't interfere in its process of regeneration. So they have a process of, like, flowering. Flower grows into fruits. The fruits will disperse the seeds. The seeds automatically grows into new plant, and the old one dies and the young one takes their place. This is what is happening in nature when the man doesn't interfere. So we are just making sure that all this process happens, and we are preparing for this natural regeneration, but we are not interfering in the regeneration process. That is called natural regeneration. So they can be done by seeds, okay, or there is one special character of the trees called as coppicing. Okay. So coppicing is a thing when you cut down the tree at the ground level, some branches will start coming from their adventitious buds. So that kind of coppicing, or root suckers. So we'll be studying each and every thing, how seed is extracted, how seed is collected. So all these things in the artificial regeneration. So here, like, what does seed do, how it is dispersed, what are the agents, how it is regenerated, how it is established. Okay. So all these things, and how coppices are there, what are the species which are coppice, which gives out to the lateral shoots when they're cut at the ground level. So there are so many species which are coppicers, which produce coppice, and they are called coppicers. And there are some species which are non-coppicers. So this time there was a question where they had asked examples of the trees which are strong coppicers, which do not coppice, which are mild coppicers. So you should remember those kind of things, which I will be telling you while teaching the subject. Then artificially we can regenerate through seeds, okay, or vegetative propagation, through cuttings, budding, grafting. Since 2018-19, there are 4 or 5 questions on grafting, different types of grafting, its advantage. They have asked you to draw a neat diagram of particular grafting method. So there is root cutting, shoot cuttings, okay, layerings. There are so many other ways of artificially regenerating them. Okay. Then after regeneration, in artificial regeneration, we will be studying what are the different methods of vegetative propagation, grafting techniques, flight factors, and there are some things when you artificially regenerate which has to be done outside the forest, and some things which has to be done inside the forest, or the forest plantation, the artificially regenerated established man-made forest, or even the natural forest if you are managing it. So some things to be done outside, seed collection, transportation, storage and all. Some things to be done inside, okay, like planting, sowing, fencing, land preparation and all. Then outside you have nurseries, okay, because you need saplings which can be planted in the field. So you temporarily raise or sow the seeds in a temporary area, take care of them, and once they grow, then you will plant it in the main garden. So those are called nurseries. And what are the different nursery techniques? Their beds, maintenance, how do you do water budgeting and grading. Then before transplanting, you have to harden the seedlings so that they get nurtured and they grow well in the nature. Then special approaches, what are the tending operations once the planting is done till it is harvested next time. So what are the activities we will do to make sure that the plant grows well and turn into a very fruitful timber. Okay, so all these things we'll be studying, and this is a concept based. It is actually real fun to learn all these things. This is a thing if you can actually do going into the forest, or if you have a small piece of land, you can establish a forest, and all these things can be applied. This is practically approachable. So we will be learning something which people are already doing. So that is the reason why these concepts are very, very clear, and the questions are directly asked from this. So there is one method of tending called as thinning. So since past 14 years, there has been not even a single question paper where thinning question has not been asked. They'll be asking, basically thinning is the cutting of immature stands so that it won't create competition among the trees. So there are different methods of thinning, what kind of trees to be cut. So ordinary thinning, mechanical thinning, French thinning, German thinning. Okay. So every year there is one question on thinning. Okay, that is the thing. So likewise, there are some hot topics which you have to give special emphasis and study, and they are not negotiable. Okay, cannot do that. So this is silviculture general. Then we have silviculture systems. In this we have certain topics like clear filling system, uniform shelterwood system, copies and conversion system, management of silviculture systems of temperate, subtropical, humid tropical, dry tropical, coastal tropical forest. Okay, special reference to plantation silviculture, choice of species, then establishment of management of standards, enrichment methods, technical constraints, intensive mechanized methods, aerial seedings, thinning and other things. So thinning is again repeated. Okay, it was there earlier and again it is repeated. So this is basically whenever you study silviculture general, how it is applied in a particular system. We have to follow a certain methodology, like what is the right time to harvest, how much you have to harvest, which part of the forest you have to harvest. So all these things are given, and those are made into systems called as silviculture systems. So there is one clear filling system where you will be like dividing the forest into coops, and every year you clear one coop, and the number of coop should be the time required to grow back, so that once you complete the entire forest, again you come to the first coop and the trees will be ready for harvesting. So something like that. They have a particular system. Shelterwood system, you will be felling the trees in such a manner that you will retain some of the trees so that they go for natural regeneration. They result in some kind of special characteristics of the trees. They will either give you uneven age trees or even age trees. So something like that, right? So we have so many systems of system where we do the filling in a concentrated way, the systems where we do filling in a dispersed way. Then there are alternate systems. Then you have copies systems. Okay, so where in the copies forest will do certain systems, and the questions are direct. What is clear filling system? What are its advantages and disadvantages? So what is this copies system, and what are the operations which are done? Okay, differentiate between copies with reserve and copies with standards. Very direct questions. If you know the concept of the topic, then you can't add anything extra, you cannot delete things from that. And even the question paper evaluator will have the same amount of information which you will be studying, so you can actually go with a full confidence that if at all that question comes, you will score a very good marks. Okay, so this is the silviculture system. Then silviculture of mangroves and cold deserts. These are the different kinds of environments which are little different from the normal forest. So they are extreme hostile environment or ecosystems. Okay, mangrove is an ecotone. So it's a transition zone between the land and the sea. So there is a area between high tide and low tide, so which will be submerged in water for some part of the day and will be completely free of water in some part of the day. It's diurnal changes will be there. So there are some tree species which have adopted to grow in that ecotone or ecosystem, which are called as mangrove trees. So we'll be studying mangroves, and cold deserts are those areas where there'll be extremely cold temperature, so because of which the tree growth will be very less. So there are certain zones in cold deserts where some places where some cold desert species will grow. So they would have adjusted to grow in that cold environment. Okay, they will be covered, land will be covered by snow. There are some shrubs. There are some adaptations of plants. So adaptations of animals, okay, in cold deserts, wild animals. So these are how do you do silviculture there. Okay, so about mangroves, their habitat and characteristics. So mangrove plantations, how they are established, how they are rehabilitated of degraded mangroves. Okay, silviculture systems of mangroves, protection of habitats against the disasters. They are used mainly for protecting against tsunamis. So there is a technique called fishbowl technique, or canal method of technique is another method, where you will be planting the mangroves in such a way that you will be protecting it from the natural disasters. Then cold deserts, what are the different characteristics, identification, management of space. See, this is what is the syllabus, but it is not necessary that we have to stick with the syllabus. So after covering everything which is there in the syllabus, we might sometimes study a little bit of more depending on the PYQs, because there are some years where they have asked about the adaptations of animals in cold deserts. They have asked about, like, list 10 species of cold deserts, direct 10 marks. So this 10 species which grows in mangroves, direct 10 marks. So if you know that, if you have practiced or prepared the answer for listing out 10 species of mangroves, then if you write those names of the trees, Heritaria or Soneraceae, Cereops, so these are some of the tree species. I will make you that you write it and paste it on your wall and keep watching it, because those are the questions which are lotteries. So if the question is asked to write 10 species, last year there was a question on 2022, write 10 species of trees which are used in medical purpose. So you just have to write down the common trees and which part of the tree is used for medicine. These are the questions which are asked in forestry. So if you write it 10 questions, 10 list of 10 species, and which can be done in around 4 to 5 minutes. So if you have practiced, then there is not even a single marks which can be penalized from that question. The evaluator is forced to give you, because you have written all the names, and the question is to list the name of the species. So those are the questions which I don't want you to miss in the examination, because they are very high scoring. Okay. Then you have silviculture of trees. So here, like, whatever the knowledge which you have accumulated in silviculture general and silviculture systems, that will be applied individually for these tree species. Okay. Every year there will be around 2 to 3 questions on this topic from this, and it will be usually a part of question number 3 or sometimes question number 4. So they have till now asked about the geographical distribution, natural distribution, the phenology of these flowers. So what are the silviculture characteristics of these flowers, how the regeneration is done in these crops. These are some 4 or 5 aspects which they have been continuously exploring. And if you know the 4 or 5 aspects of these trees, then it can be easier. Okay. So we have traditional and recent advances in tropical research and practices. Then we have silviculture of some of the economically important species. We have Acacia catachu, Acacia nilotica, Acacia auricuiformis, Albizia lebec, Albizia procera. Like, we have so many things. You have this teak, Tectona grandis, you have Shoria robusta, sal. So these are the number of species, and this is one part of the forestry which is negotiable. Okay. So anyways, you have to answer 5 out of 8 questions, and in that 5 out of 8 questions, you have to compulsorily leave 3 questions. And if you are sure that other subjects of your forestry, other topics of your forestry is stronger, then this subject is negotiable, because the benefit cost ratio for 3 questions, you have to study the silviculture of all these things. See, it will be taught. I will be discussing each and every species. I will be giving you the notes. I will be giving you the information. But it is up to you that whether you are, leaving this subject in the mind, you will be having a thought that, if the question comes from here, I'll leave it. But if you are little bit energetic, and if you, gain your strength and study this, and this is one such another kind of lottery where the specific information are cool. If they ask about natural distribution of Acacia catachu, it's a fixed location. There are some areas or countries where they are distributed, and if you know it, then that is the answer. If you know it is either it is shade tolerant, or it is sun loving, okay, or shade loving, or it can copies, it doesn't copies, it is resistant to frost, not resistant to frost. Okay. So those are the kind of characters which you have to know about individual species. So even if you filter it based on previous 20 years of question paper, filter it, you can actually come up to around 15-16 species which are very important, and if you practice it, then if the species coincides with the question asked, then you are lucky that day. Otherwise, anyways, you will not be losing marks because you have to answer only 5 out of 8. So we'll work out on this topic, okay, when we are discussing. Okay. Then there is paper 1 section B, like which contains agroforestry, social forestry, joint forest management, and tribology. Okay. So here we'll be discussing about agroforestry, okay, its scope, necessary role in the life of people and domestic animals, integrated land use planning, especially related to soil and water conservation, water recharge, nutrient availability, nature and ecosystem preservation, like including the ecological balances through pest predator relationship, providing opportunities for enhancing biodiversity, medicinal and other flora and fauna. Okay. So how agroforestry is used? Agroforestry systems under agroecological zones, selection of species, role of multipurpose trees and NTFPs, techniques, food, fodder and fuel security, research and extension needs. Then this is about agroforestry. Agroforestry is basically, it's a land use system where you'll be combining different aspects of trees, crops and animals. So either any 2 or all the 3 of them, if you combine them and place it in the same piece of land, either spatially or temporally, so that is called agroforestry. And we have different combinations. If you combine agriculture, which is the growing of crops, along with trees, which is silviculture, it's called agro-silviculture. We have certain different types of agro-silviculture. Then you combine silviculture, trees and animals, which is pasture, silvopasture. If you combine all these 3, agro-silvipasture, we have certain systems. So we'll be studying different systems. What are they? What are the crops which is being used? Then social and urban forestry. Okay. So objective, scope, necessary, people's participation. Social forestry is like, basically one kind of forestry where you will be involving the people. Okay. It is simply to understand that social forestry, if you want to remember it and never forget, social forestry is just like democracy. Okay. Social forestry is a forestry by the people, of the people and for the people. Okay. So it is a forestry which is outside the traditional forest, which comes under the ownership of the government. So this is a forestry or the planting of trees outside the government forests. Okay. And it is done by the people. So people are the one who plant these trees in and around their premises, in and around their agriculture fields, on the boundaries, in their campus, within the compounds, in the government temples or hospitals or schools. So there are so many areas on both the sides of the roads or railway tracks. So this is done by the people, of the people. The ownership rights will be there with the people. They can use it for their own purpose and for the people. Okay. It is done for the people. And this is a kind of forest which is mainly proposed to reduce the stress on the actual forest, because most of these villagers, they depend on the forest for various resources. In order to reduce it, they are asked or encouraged to grow their own forest for their own purpose, which is social forestry. We'll study about them. Then you have joint forest management. JFM stands for joint forest management. So which is a concept which came in early 1980s, when the individual or single effort of forest department to manage the forest was not so successful. And in one of the cases called as Arabari experiment, where people were involved to manage, to protect, manage and take care of the forest along with the forest department, it was a huge success. And the benefits coming out of it, the usufruct of the this activity was shared among the public, which became a very famous concept of joint forest management, which was spread across India, and the government of India also gave a guidelines for following the JFM in different states. So we'll be studying about it. There are so many questions on JFM which is asked every year. Okay, there's a very favorite topic of UPSC. There are principles, objectives, methodology, scope, benefits, role of NGOs. Then you have tribology. We'll study about tribes. What is the tribal scene in India? Tribes, their concepts of races, principle of social grouping, stages of tribal economy, education, cultural traditions, customs, ethos, participation in forestry programs, how tribals are, helpful in conserving the forest, or how forest department helped in conservation of tribals, what are their problems, so why they are not being properly uplifted. So there are so many aspects about tribals, their social units. We'll talk about their marriages, what are the different types, their societies, their families. Okay, so we'll discuss about them. There are different types. They might ask short notes on these tribes. So we'll be discussing about these topics. Okay. Then you have forest soils, soil conservation and watershed management. So we'll be studying about forest soils. What are the different types of forest soils? See, even though they have given a classification, there is a classification of forest soils, but there is classification of general soil as well. We might have studied in geography that there is laterite soil, red soil, okay, black soil, then alluvial soil. Okay, so there was a question in 2020 about the soils. Okay, what are the different kinds of, what are the different classification of soils in India? Not specifically forest soils, but general soils in forestry paper. Okay, section B. So when you study that, then only you can update your notes that we should not stop at studying only classification of forest soils, but also about the different kinds of soils. Usually the ICR is given the classification which we'll be studying. Then what are the factors affecting soil formation? Okay, which we call it as weathering process. Okay, there are so many physical, chemical and biological agents, okay, which helpful in formation of the soils through temperature, to thing. There are worms and trees of the forest, roots of the trees, which helps in weathering, different agents. Then we'll study about physical, chemical and biological properties of soil, which is one of the most important area where the questions are being asked. So we have soil texture, soil structure, soil color, then soil pH, so cation exchange capacity, anion exchange capacity. There are so many aspects about soil, their biological properties. We'll be studying them one by one. Then soil conservation, what is its definition, causes of erosion. We'll study about types of erosion, wind and water erosion, conservation and management of eroded soils. Okay, how do you manage soils which are eroded? How do you manage the saline soils? Okay, by establishing windbreaks, shelter belts, sand dunes. How do you reclaim the saline and alkaline soils where the salt is more? Waterlogged soils, wastelands. Okay, how do forests help in conserving the soils? So these are the things which are very helpful in the paper 1 of GS in civil service mains, as well as a lot of questions do come in the prelims examination from soils. So even in forestry optional paper, there is a huge number of times where they have asked about this concept, especially saline soils. Almost 8 to 9 times they have asked a question on what are saline soils, what are sodic soils, what are alkaline soils, how do you reclaim it, how do you manage it. Okay, you should know the conceptual understanding of that. Then how do you maintain and build up the soil organic matter? What are the provisions of loping for green leaf manuring? Okay, for using the green leaf manuring, how can you increase the fertility of the soil? Then forest leaf litter and composting, role of microorganisms in ameliorating the soils. We'll be studying about the things. We'll study about nitrogen and carbon cycles, which again is a repetition in biogeochemical cycles in forest ecology. Then you have watershed management, under which we'll be studying the concepts of watershed, role of mini forest and forest trees in overall resource management. Then you have forest hydrology, watershed development in torrent control, river stabilization, avalanche and landslides, rehabilitation of degraded areas, hilly and mountain areas, watershed management and environmental function of forest, water harvesting and conservation, groundwater recharge, watershed management and role of integrating forest trees, horticulture crops and field crops. See, this is about entire watershed management. How do you manage a thing? Watershed is a hydrological unit where you will be managing the flow of the water and utilizing it for either groundwater recharge or harvesting, storing, using it for domestic purpose or to agriculture or development of forests for creating artificial holes for wildlife. There are various applications. And how do that management or the development activities which we do in watershed will help in various other environmental functions. So all these things we'll be studying. Then you have environment and conservation of biodiversity. So in which we have the concepts, look at here. This is very important from the prelims. So what are the components and importance of environment, principle of conservation, impact of deforestation, forest fires, various human activities like mining, construction, developmental projects, population growth on environment. So these are some of the problems related to environment which anyways you have to study as a part of environment. Then in pollution we'll be studying the types of pollution. So air pollution, there is water pollution, there is noise pollution, okay, solid waste pollution or land pollution. Now we have so many other kinds of pollution which has been included, like you have thermal pollution, radioactive pollution. Then we have the nuclear pollution, nano pollution, space pollution, light pollution, okay, or visual pollution. There are so many types of pollution which has been updated. So we'll be studying about the different types, okay, but here the emphasis is mainly on the air, water and noise, okay. Then you have global warming, greenhouse effects, a very compulsory question. Every year there will be question on this under climate change, okay. Ozone layer depletion, a very important topic of environment. Acid rains, impact and control measures, okay. Environmental monitoring, concept of sustainable development. So we'll include all the SDG goals, okay, how acid rain happens, how ozone is depleting, ozone hole and other concepts. Then role of trees and forest in environmental conservation, control and prevention of air, water and noise pollution. So we'll be studying individually about different pollutants. So what are the different sources of those pollutants, effect of those pollutants, and how to control it, indoor pollution, outdoor pollution, government efforts, by law, okay. So many other ways of controlling, okay. Then environment policy and legislation, in which we will be studying the Environment Protection Act 1986, we are studying Biodiversity Act 2002, okay. So environmental impact assessment, EIA, economic assessment of watershed development and ecological and environment protection. So it is like biodiversity, even the biodiversity part, even though it is not there in the syllabus, there are ample number of times where they have asked about biodiversity, the value of biodiversity. So what are the methods of conservation of biodiversity? So biodiversity hotspots, okay, hotspots in India. So all these questions. So we'll be completing the biodiversity part as well. So that is the reason why I don't believe in just sticking with the syllabus. There should be some additional topics with the syllabus based on the analysis of the previous year questions. So which we'll be doing in the subject. Tree improvement and seed technology. In this we have general concepts of tree improvement, methods and techniques, variations and reduce. Okay, then we have provenance, seed sources. This is the same thing which got repeated in the silviculture. As I said, we study all these things there itself. Then quantitative aspects of forestry's improvement, seed production and seed orchards, okay, progeny test, use of tree improvement in natural forest and stands. Then we have improvement, genetic testing, programming, selection and breeding for resistance to disease, insects, adverse environment, genetic base, forest genetic resources, gene conservation, in situ and ex situ, cost benefit ratio and economic evaluation. So this is a topic which will be again repeated in forest economics, cost benefit analysis and others, so valuation and others. So we'll be studying it here and will not be repeating there, we'll just touch upon there. So that time will be drastically reduced when you study this concept at least any one of the places. And this is very important topic in terms of breeding. There is very less advance which has been happening in this breeding, tree breeding and seed technology in terms of forestry, because of the lack of extensive research as compared to agriculture. But whatever is there, it is established, we'll study it and we'll try to understand. So different methods of breeding, okay, by hybridization, by introduction and many other ways of thing, what is provenance testing and others. So then we'll move on to section A of paper 2. It's very, very important. Scoring and forest management, it is not actually a subject. It's an entire application of whatever we have studied in forestry. When you apply it properly for management of forest, that is what is forest management. It is said that there should not be a single concept which should be skipped while studying forest management. Very, very important and very technical, very conceptual. So you need certain help in understanding this concept because there are various aspects, various formulas, how to regulate the yield, how much of forest need to be harvested from the forest every year so that sustainability is maintained. So like what are the objectives and principles, techniques, okay. So what is the structure and dynamics of the forest stand, then the concept of sustained yield. So there is sustained yield, progressive yield concepts which keep on asking in the examination. Then what is rotation, different types of rotation, what is a normal forest, okay. So normal here is like not ordinary. Normal forests are those forests which have proper normal age gradation, normal growing stock and normal increment which they are putting on every year. Normal is like the standard. So it is ideal state of the forest which every forester dreams of taking his forest to that state. Then what do you understand by growing stock? Okay, regulation of yield, okay, management of forest plantations, then commercial forest, forest cover monitoring. There are different approaches like site specific planning, strategic planning, approval, sanction and expenditure, monitoring of forest, okay, then reporting, governance, details of steps involved in formation of village forest committees, joint forest participatory management or VFCs and GFM, which we studied in social forestry, again repeated here. So here it is very technical. This regulation of yield, okay, this is one such topic which everybody tries to read on their own, will not understand and come for help. Just read this forest management topic and complete, and if you are able to understand, then you are good to go. So do that. Okay, this is one such important topic, very high scoring. A lot of questions come from this in section A. Obviously it has to be asked in section A of paper 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, okay. So among those, but maximum amount of coverage will be there from forest management. Then there is forest working plan, okay. So this is one such topic which actually should have been merged with forest management, but somehow in syllabus it is another part, so we have to study. So it involves forest planning, evaluation and monitoring tools, approaches for integrated planning, multipurpose development of forest resources, forest industrial development, working plan and working schemes, their role in natural conservation, biodiversity and their dimensions, preparation and control, divisional working plans, annual working operations. See, basically it's a plan which is being done ahead of time. So whenever you want to manage a forest, it will be managed for a long time. You cannot instantly take decisions. So how forest has to be managed, you have to prepare a plan, and usually in India the plan is prepared for next 10 years. So in the next 10 years, what are the activities which needs to be done on every year basis, that will be done and given. And before the completion of the 10 years, before 3 years itself, we will start preparing the next 10 years working plan. So there are certain officers who are dedicated for bringing up this working plan, and you will be doing this working plan based on the previous results. You should make any alterations, changes, or retain the same plan. So how this is a a written draft for management of forest, okay. So how is it done, who takes the observations, who prepares the first preliminary report, who evaluates it, and how the final thing comes. All these things are studied here. We'll have a proper thing, and there is some code and some instruction from the government under National Working Plan Code. So it was there in 2014, and surprisingly there were 2 questions on the National Working Plan Code in the same year, I think in 2021. So you should be including those updated aspects about these topics. Okay, we have to update the syllabus as well. Forest mensuration and remote sensing. Okay, so mensuration is basically measurement. How do you measure? So because when you want to sell tree or timber or valuate it or sell it, you should fix a value for the tree or other products. So that can be done only when you know how much is there, and to know how much is there, you have to measure. Okay, what are the different measures of measuring the diameter? Okay, either through tape or vernier calipers. At what distance you have to measure? What are the rules to be followed and regulations? Then girth, height, volume of the trees, okay, form factor, then volume estimation of stand, current annual increment, mainly called as 𝐾𝐒, how much of yield or entire forest put together in 1 year, because it is growing, right? Then mean annual increment, okay, meaning that for number of years, sampling methods, sample plots, yield calculation, yield and stand tables, forest cover monitoring through remote sensing, graphical information system, GIS system and management and modeling. So we'll study all about the remote sensing, GIS, how do you measure a tree, like how do you measure a height when there is some obstruction. So that is in slope, okay, or you are in down, that is in height. So if something comes in between you, okay, obstruct the vision, there are so many cases and so many solutions for that. So which we'll be studying, again a very technical part of forestry. Next is survey and forest engineering. Okay, so in forest surveying we'll be studying like how to measure the areas. We have to do surveying, okay, which is a very important part of civil engineering. So there is one more optional of civil engineering in forestry on the list which I showed. There also there is survey and mensuration. They're very deep. But in forestry, the application of survey and engineering is little relaxed. So they involve only the process of preparation of maps. So in forestry, the survey and engineering is done, or survey and leveling is done only to prepare different types of maps. Okay, short maps, big maps. Okay. So we'll study different types of surveying. We can survey using chain, compass, or plane table. So there have been direct questions. While chaining, when you are measuring the distance between 2 objects, using a chain, you will encounter certain obstacles. There is a river or a pond or a house. Then how do you overcome that? So questions have been asked from that. How do you complete a chain line when a pond intersects the chaining distance or a tree intersects the chaining distance? That kind of direct questions. If you know the formula, if you have the methodology, just write it, draw the picture, and you are done. That's why it is easier for you to score the marks in the examination. Okay. Different methods of surveying. So we have chain survey, you have compass survey, then you have plane table survey. Okay. So we have topographic surveys, then maps and map reading, basic principle of forest engineering. So we'll be studying building materials. Okay. So forest buildings, if you want to construct a building, what do you need? You need the stones or bricks, then different aggregates for preparing the paste, which we call it as mortar, which is the mixture of the sand, water, and lime. You can use lime or cement, okay, to prepare the paste. Using those paste, you will be either arranging the bricks or stones, okay, and will construct a structure which is called as a masonry. Okay, so in that they have gone so deep that they have asked what are the chemical composition of the soil used for preparation of bricks. Okay, we'll be studying bricks, different types of bricks. Now, how do you prepare the bricks? What are the characteristics of good bricks? We'll be studying about stones, types of stones, characteristics. Then sand, we'll study about what are cement, what are different types of cement, ratio of cements for different construction activities. Then we'll have different types of lime, hydraulic lime, okay, then fat lime, So we'll study all these aspects about the engineering, forest engineering, building materials, building construction, then roads and bridges, different types of roads, how do you manage drainage in roads, what different types of bridges, okay, general principles, objectives, types, okay, simple design and construction of timber bridges. Every year there will be some question on bridges. They may ask about cantilever bridge, okay, just need diagram and the parts, okay, so how it is constructed. So we have Irish bridge, we have suspension bridge. So they'll ask about difference between the different types of bridges, simple wooden bridges, okay. So we'll study all those things in detail. Then you have forest ecology and ethnobotany. Okay, forest ecology. So you have biotic and abiotic components of ecology. You have producers, consumers, decomposers. Then abiotic, again you have light, temperature, water, soil, topography, okay, edaphic factors. Then forest ecosystems, different types of forest ecosystems. Okay, it may be terrestrial ecosystem, running water ecosystem, aquatic ecosystems, marine ecosystems. So many kinds of ecosystems we'll study. Forest community concepts, we'll study about different concepts of community ecology. We'll study about interspecific interactions. Okay. So this time there was a question in prelims. They have asked about symbiosis, where the fig actually uses a bird for its thing. That's a symbiotic relationship. That all comes under forest ecosystem community, ecological communities. Then we'll start study about ecotone, okay, then niche, then ecological succession, okay, so ecological equivalents, keystone species, okay. So all these concepts in community ecology, which is a very important part of environment ecology studies for your GS, because this is where around 5 to 6 questions comes from. All these things is there in this syllabus, okay. Vegetation concepts, ecological succession and climax, primary productivity, what are nutrient cycling, water relations, physiology and stress environment. So in nutrient cycling and other things we will study about different cycles, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, sulfur cycle, phosphorus cycle. So 2021 in prelims, UPSC prelims, there were 3 questions just from biogeochemical cycles. They have asked about water cycle, which was again a repetition, which was from 2012. This question was asked in 2012 earlier. Then there was a question on carbon cycle. There was a question on phosphorus cycle. So we will be studying this very nicely here. Then how physiology and stress environment happens in logging, water logging, salinity and alkalinity, different forest types of India. So there is a forest types given by Champion and Seth. Okay. So they have classified the Indian forest into different categories: temperate forest, tropical forest, so mountain forest, scrublands. So then there are different subcategories based on the climates, based on the vegetation, based on soil types, based on whether present in North India or South India. So we'll study each and every classification given by Champion and Seth. Then identification of species, composition and association, dendrology, taxonomic classification, principle and establishment of herbaria, okay, for storage, arboreta, conservation of forest ecosystems, clonal parks. So this is till here it is forest ecology. Then we'll move to another part called forest ethnobotany. We will be studying the plants with the help of the tribal knowledge, with their traditional knowledge, mainly in terms of medicine. So 2022 there was a question where they had asked, just list the trees which are used for medicinal purpose. So here we'll be studying the forest trees in terms of medicine, like Indian system of medicine, Ayurveda, Unani, introduction to nomenclature, habitat, distribution and botanical features of medicinal and aromatic plants, factors affecting action and toxicity of drug plants and their chemical constituents. What are the different plants used for drugs and their chemical composition, toxicity features and others. And I have forest resource utilization, very long and very important topic. Again, a lot of questions coming from here. So environmentally sound forest, harvesting practices. How do you extract the forest? It's a kind of thing where, like, once you take care of the forest, it's a thing which is done after the forest has been grown. So you have to fell the trees. There is a methodology where you are felling. What are the instruments you are used for felling? How are you transporting them, either through water or through animals or through land or trucks or even aerial ways? So after transporting, how do you store them? How do you sell them? How do you, how the auctions are done for the timbers? So how do you do seasoning so that it can be converted into proper furniture? Okay, so all these aspects, okay, logging and extraction. Then what are the techniques and principles? Transportation system, storage and sale. Then there are some non-timber forest products which are not timber. So it can be like, the resins, tannins, oleoresins, aromatic grasses. It may be gum. So anything which is other than wood, like sometimes leaves, tendu leaves are used for beadi making. There was a question in that, how tendu leaves are used. Okay, what is the process of beadi making? Then definition and scope of gums, resins, oleoresins, fibers, oil seeds, nuts, rubber, canes, bamboos, medicinal plants, charcoal, lac and shellac, okay, kind of animal-based resin, only animal-based resin from the insect Lacifera lacca. It's called lac and shellac. Then katha, kutch and katha, beedi leaves, collection, processing and disposal. Then need and importance of food seasoning. So in the process of extraction, preservation, general principle of seasoning, air and kiln seasoning, solar dehumidification, then steam heated electric kilns, then different types of composite woods. Composite woods are like, some woods are very low strength that they cannot be used as it is. They have to combine with some other wood or some other material to make it strong, like plywoods, sandwich boards, particle boards and others. They are called composite woods. Adhesives, what are the gums used, properties used, plywood manufacture, properties used, fiber woods manufacture, properties used, particle boards manufacture, properties used. Then present status of composite wood industry in India, future expansion. Then pulp, paper and pulp, the paper which you make using the wood. Okay, paper and pulp industry, paper and rayon. Present position of supply of raw materials to industries, wood substitution, utilization of plantation woods, problem and possibilities. Then finally, anatomical structure of wood. Okay, what is there inside? There are some macrostructures, there are some microstructures. You can see it through your naked eye, like growth rings and all. But there are some fibers, xylem, phloem, tracheids, okay, all these things. Then defects of seasoning, defects of growth, timber identification, general principles. Now, so this is what is forest utilization. Very scoring, very easy and very interesting topic. Have forest protection and wildlife biology. So you'll be again, talking about the protection, injuries to the forest, like by abiotic and biotic factors. So by animals, wild animals, grazing animals, browsing animals, humans, birds, insects, microorganisms, all these destructive agencies. Yeah. So you have insect pests and diseases, effect of air pollution, this is abiotic on the forest dieback, susceptibility of forest to damage, nature and of damage, cause, prevention and preventive protective measures, benefits due to chemical and biological control. Then general forest protection against fire, equipment and methods, controlled use of fire, economic and environmental cost, timber salvage operations after natural disaster. Whenever there is natural disaster, how do you take out the timber, how do you salvage it? Okay. What are the different pests of the forest in nurseries, in old plantations? How do you control it? Silviculture method, physical method, chemical method, biological method, diseases, different types of diseases of forest. So by fungus, bacteria, virus, how do you control it? So both the entomology and pathology of forestry. Then role of afforestation and forest regeneration in absorption of CO2, okay, carbon sequestration. Then rotational and controlled grazing, different methods of control against grazing, browsing animals, effect of wild animals on forest regeneration, human impact, encroachment, poaching, grazing, live fencing, theft, shifting cultivation and control. All these things again we have read in environment as well, but again, like this is where it is again repeated. And we have forest economics and legislation. So in forest economics, we'll be studying the fundamental principles. So there was a question this year: what are the different principles of economics applied in forestry? Okay, so like there are around 12 principles. Like forestry never accepts anything at a face value; it wants concrete numbers. So there is it has models. So forestry has a surveys, cost of concepts, then marginal cost, opportunity cost. So there are so many other principles which are applied in forestry. So those are forest economical principles. So we'll be studying that, the fundamental principles of economics. Then cost benefit analysis, benefit cost ratio. Okay, what are the benefits, objectives, limitations, estimation of demand and supply. Okay, so what is demand, what are the factors influencing demand, what is supply, what are the factors influencing, what is market equilibrium, okay, surplus, shortage and others. Then analysis of trend of national and international market, changes in production and consumption pattern. Then assessment of projection of market structures, okay, different structures, role of private sector and cooperatives, role of corporate financing, socio-economic analysis of forest productivity and attitudes, valuation of forest. So some certain topics which are related to national and international marketing, economics. Then coming to legislation, history of forest development, okay, Indian Forest Policy 1894-1952, and it is not 1990, it's there in the syllabus, but there are 3 policies. The present policy is the National Forest Policy 1988. Okay, so first one is 1894, 1952 and 1988, and now there is a draft policy of 2018. These are the only 4 policies in India. So what they meant in here is, in 1990 there was a Government of India guidelines for joint forest management. Okay, so that is what is been mixed together. So don't try to search for National Forest Policy 1990, there is none. The National Forest Policies 1988, people's involvement, joint forest management, okay, involvement of women in the management of forest policies and issues related to land use, timber, non-timber products. Then you study sustainable forest management, which again we studied in forest management. Okay. Then industrial policies, institutional and structural changes, decentralization of forest public administration, how the forest public administration is being decentralized. Okay, starting from the head position of PCCF, then APCCF, CCF, CF, DFO, ACF, RFO, okay, DRFO, guard and watcher. This is the hierarchy and how it is decentralized, who has how much of power, and how the forests have been classified according to administrative purposes. Then different laws of forest, necessity, general principles. Then Indian Forest Act 1927. So there have been ample number of times the question have been asked from here in prelims. There was direct question and according to the Indian Forest Act 1927. So now amendments have been made, a lot of amendments, so there is very high chance of again being asked. Then Forest Conservation Act FCA 1980, Wildlife Protection Act 1972, again a very important thing. Even in 2023 there was a question on Wildlife Protection Act. They asked a question on vermins. Then their amendments, okay, recent amendments, application of Indian Penal Code in forestry, scope and objective of forest inventory. It is like when you do enumeration, and when you say the application of Indian Penal Code, usually the crimes in forestry are punished under various laws. There is Indian Forest Act, Wildlife Protection Act. There is Indian Penal Code as well. What are the crimes which are punished under different acts, and what are the crimes punished under the Indian Penal Code. So we'll be discussing that. So there was a direct question, what is the application of Indian Penal Code in forestry? So those kind of direct questions will come, and that is the end of the syllabus and the dissection of the syllabus. So thank you so much. So believe you can, and you are halfway there. So it is the belief what you have in yourself that you will be able to do it, then you are half there, and the remaining half I will pull you up, okay, to the path of success. So this is the word by Theodore Roosevelt. So thank you so much for your time in listening, and see you soon in the class, and all the best for your examination. So this is Chiranth Rajashekhar signing off. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.